everybody. Welcome. If you have made it this far, good job. Well, this is the end of January, so I'm doing my end of the month wrap up, and it has been a great start to the year already. I did my Octavia Butler vlog. You know, she's a black sci-fi writer. I am going to leave the link to that vlog below. You can check it out. Look at all the great books I read by this fantastical lady. Also, I participated in a buddy read for Iola Leroy by Frances Harper, and that was hosted by Heather's Heroes and Heroines. I did a live show with Heather and Nicole at Dusty Book Sniffers, and I will link that below as well. Now, another thing that I have on the docket is I'm participating in the NK Jemisin Readalong this year, hopefully. Thus far, we're doing the first book, the 5th season. Haven't finished it yet, but definitely will be done in the next few days. And there is a live show on February 4th at 8 p.m. So if you want to check that out, I'm going to leave the link below to the channel. It's The Curious Owl. We'll be doing it on her channel. So that is what I have going forth. So I'm not going to talk too much about the 5th season, but you know, it's the world building that NK Jemisin has won the Hugo Award for 3 years in a row. So definitely a good trilogy. This is the first book. Second book will be in February. But what I did do to get in the mood for NK Jemisin is I read a book by her. Now this is a graphic novel. It's called The Far Sector. Now this graphic comic novel, whatnot, is about a new Green Lantern called Sojourner Mullion, and she is conducting an investigation on this planet like way out in the universe that hasn't seen a murder in like 500 years. And you have these 3 races of people that live on this planet, and none of them feel any sort of emotion. But everyone starts to clash over controversial policies, and she is there to keep the peace. Now, I thought that this was a really good book. I just felt that a lot of the graphics were a bit too busy for me. So sometimes I really couldn't understand what was going on, so I just concentrated on the wording. But it did have a queer representation. It talked about a lot of social issues like police brutality and not having any accountability, about voter suppression, and people wanting to have the liberty to be able to feel. But very good book, and it's a great introduction to NK Jemisin if you want to check it out. Now, I also have another buddy read. This is called The Book of Night Women. I read this as a buddy read with Alan at Big Heart Books and Classics. I'm going to link the live show below. But this is basically about a slave woman named Lilith in Jamaica in like the 1800s, and she is helping these other women called the Night Women to plan this slave revolt on this plantation. However, she seems to have some reservations about this revolt and has a lot of mixed feelings due to some situations that she has going on. Now, you really need to be in a certain headspace to read this book because it shows a lot of the horrible atrocities that were committed during the slave time. There's a lot of sexual situations, and you see a lot about how women were utilized basically as sex slaves, if you will. But there's definitely a lot of violence and a lot of goriness, and it really just makes you sad about how people lost their humanity during the slave time. Those that committed the atrocities and those that were victims of it as well. And also the vernacular in here is difficult to read, and it's definitely challenging. So it takes quite a bit of time to kind of get through and get into the mode of the language, but still really good book. And I also read this crazy book. This is called AD After Death, and I don't know. This is like a mixed media graphic novel. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so you have like all this long, I don't know if you can really see that, but you have all this long words, right? And then you have the whole what you consider graphics too. So you got a lot of that mixed in. So it's kind of like a novel slash graphic novel, which kind of threw me off with this book. And I will say that I did not like that much. But it's basically about a thief that has some mommy issues, and he is hired to steal something that is basically going to help this rich man essentially find the fountain of youth on this mountain. And meanwhile, the apocalypse happens on Earth. And then millennia later, he is looking for something in the old world. But it talks a lot about trauma, there's grief, about correcting your wrongs. But what I thought was odd was that this guy's carrying around this girl in a duffel bag the entire novel. That was just really strange. But it was an okay storyline, just really confusing and definitely not something for me. I think there's actually some follow-ups, but I don't care to do so. And another book that I read, I got on Kindle Unlimited, is called Dessication. It's basically a horror novel that's a cross between Stephen King's Thinner and this movie that I saw called Drag Me to Hell. It is a story about a guy who's just made a lot of bad decisions in life, and then he is mean to this old woman who puts a curse on him, and then he starts falling apart. But I thought it was a really good horror novel. The one thing though that really irritated me, and this is a Kindle Unlimited electronic book, mind you, it ended at 73%. It's like, so you ended the book at 73% in order to plug your other books. I definitely felt cheated. And then lastly, I decided to venture into one of those, you know, Amazon Prime collections where you get like 4 or 5 short stories or whatnot. Anyway, so I ventured into the Forward collection, which is a collection of sci-fi fantasy writers, like a lot of really good, well-known people that have written all these short stories. And there were 6 of them. So then you had Emergency Skin by N.K. Jemisin, which I had already read years ago, basically about people that have altered themselves when they left Earth, and then they're surprised upon their return of what they find. Then you have Arrived at Your Destination by Amor Towles, which is about a man who goes to this new age fertility clinic to help select the genes for his future child, and he realizes there's a whole lot of other things that he needs to think about, and it's much more complicated. Then you have Randomized by Andy Weir. You know, he wrote The Martian, and it's about a couple that is trying to cheat Vegas with some technology. Then you have The Last Conversation about a man locked inside of some sort of laboratory having a conversation with this woman scientist and trying to figure out, you know, exactly who he is. Then you have Summer Frost by Blake Couch. I think he wrote that book Upgrade last year. And it's about a man who is losing touch with humanity because he is so engrossed in artificial intelligence. And it's a cross between that movie Terminator and The Real Guy, which was a really good movie, by the way. Then you have Ark by Veronica Roth, and basically Earth is about to be destroyed by this asteroid, and scientists are cataloging all of this, you know, genetic material. It reminded me a lot of that movie 2012. Well, I thought that this collection as a whole was a really great way to sample a lot of famous writers just to kind of get a taste for their writing. And I thought that they were suspenseful stories. I thought they were interesting and definitely unique. And that is my month. I've read a lot of good books, and I'm hoping that in February I will continue to read more. So stay tuned for my TBR for next month with all the great readathons for Black History Month. So take care, like, subscribe, comment. Bye-bye.